honey, let the good time roll. Let's roll. Roll. When you're dead, you're done. So let the good time roll. I say let the good time roll. I don't care if you're young or old. You ought to get together and let the good time roll. Don't sit there mumbling, talking trash.
The moon's eclipse, I stalk the concrete veins. Cloaked in chaos, art of war, blood courses through my veins. Suns who whisper, strike like thunder, crush them where they stand. Blades auroric, I dissect the weak with bare hands. Shuriken tongues, split your jug, your lyrics ricochet. Invisible like midnight fog, then poof, I'm in your face. You think you're armored, nah, I slip through cracks like smoke. One slice, your empire chokes. Checkmate, this is war I spoke. I phase through your defenses. Feed your ego to the crows, no mercy, no repentance. You'll never see me coming, just the shadow where I stood. A flicker, then your kingdom's drowned in ash and brotherhood. I am the storm in the silence, blazed in the fire of 1,000 suns. Violence, be my samurai, loyalty or demise. Cross me once, meet the reaper staring through my eyes. I cut through the night like a banshee. Sealed kisses cold as the tundra. Pray your gods can teach me. Need your protection, too late, you're already dead. My shadow's the last thing you'll see as I leave your head. Wars, I design a map, your doom in ink. Faint left, then vanish, watch your ranks collapse, you blink. Appear weak, then break their spine, Sun Tzu's my scripture. Drip venom in your veins, let doubt fester like a stricture. Ninjato flow, split your ego into confetti. You're spitting flames, I'm the void, suffocate, no oxygen petty. Ambush in the cipher, strike from trenches of your mind. Leave your carcass as a warning, mess with gods, get blind. Cadence crash through your barricades. unseen plague.
Okay, I think that's it. Not quite sure. So let me double check. What do you guys think? Do you like how those songs?
Yeah, pretty dope set, man. I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't taking any notice really.
You had it muted out. I'm pretty sure. I'm used to that. I'm used to that. I'm pretty sure you had it muted. So
I put the volume down on it.
yeah, I knew that.
Pretty on theme, I think.
Now I'm gonna get rid of these banners because Edworthy hates them.
Yeah.
And we have your slideshow up and ready to go. So
Sweet.
okay, so I'm gonna do my countdown. And
Hang on, before you start. Mr. Robot, say something.
Can you hear me?
just count down.
Be very quiet.
I turned my mic down because of the music. Yeah. Turn it back up. Oh, what?
It's a speaker.
Oh, no.
It's a speaker issue, never a microphone issue.
Fuck, man. KDE crashed on me. Now I can't bloody turn my mic up. Oh, wait. It just did it.
Yeah,
There we go.
Yeah. Can you hear me though? That's important. Yeah. See,
Is my speakers echoing when you talk?
no, you're doing good.
No.
You're just a little bit loud. Turn it down a little bit.
There?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
This is
Okay.
you can turn your speakers back so that you can hear us. Or you can turn them up. Just don't turn them up to the point where it echoes whenever you hear us.
This should be okay, level.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Oh, now this is important. Audio and video. And I want to let everybody know that's the reason why I do my sound checks and audio checks, even with the stream, not just with my OBS or anything like that on my computer, because we need to hear what's being said. I tried to do it blind before, and it was a bad idea. And
I told you so. I did tell you at the time it wasn't a good idea.
yeah. So just so everybody know, that's the reason why we do it live stream, is because I want to hear what's being said on the live stream as it's being recorded or streamed. So, and I do the countdown so that I can actually have a place where I can start the video when I do edit this and upload it as a uploaded video. So thank you very much, Mr. Robot, for allowing me an opening to where I can do that without sounding like a nerd. That was great.
You're welcome.
Okay. So let me do my countdown, and I will do the intro like normal, and we will get down to business. So, sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. How about you, Mark? You ready?
Okay. Carry on.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conspiracy. As a matter of fact, this is the final episode for this season. The year is 2025, and this is officially the second season that I'm finishing up on for Conspiracy. Now, this is the first season when it comes to the wonderful world of weirdness, but me and Karma had previously done this on Strange Stories, which is another YouTube channel that I have. And I carried it over from Strange Stories onto the wonderful world of weirdness. Now, if you guys have missed any of the episodes, you can find the raw stream video on the Strange Stories, which I upload and I don't live stream too. What I do with this one is I do the live stream here on Wonderful World of Weirdness, and then I break it down into 15-minute segments so that people who don't want to watch an hour or two of live stream can watch it 15 minutes at a time. I found it more enjoyable for a lot of people on the internet to sit back and just watch a 15-minute video rather than watching long ones. So that's why I started doing it. Now, with that being said, today is the final day, like I said, and I went ahead and I invited a few of my friends to come in to do a recap on some of the stuff that I've gone over and see what their thoughts are on it. Most of the people who watch my streams already know them. There's Mr. Edworthy, Mark Edworthy from England, and Mr. Robot from undisclosed areas.
Hello, everyone.
Of the world. Which, if you watch my videos, you'll eventually figure out where he's at. He just forgets sometimes.
I don't try to.
He forgets. Yeah. So, with that being said, who wants to start out, or who wants to start up?
Wow.
You guys ready?
I had a thought about, because Roger has only 12 of these episodes a year, and it got me thinking that maybe that's a conspiracy all in itself, you know? If anyone's ever heard of, like, the 12 tribes of Israel, you know, and the Majestic 12 group, and the significance of the 12 apostles, this number 12 just keeps popping up throughout history. 12 animals representing the Chinese zodiac, you know. So it made me wonder whether Roger Hansen was in on some kind of conspiracy. What do you guys think?
Well, can I add in on that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, if you guys continue to watch my streams, you might find out what that's all about in my episodes that I have been doing. Esoteric Agenda, which is very, very good, by the way. And I might actually take time to kind of explain the number 12 to people in that episode, which is about esoteric beliefs and things of that nature. So good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Robot, even though I have no idea what you're talking about.
Man, you know, I get a little paranoid sometimes. So excuse me.
I know. I've known you long enough, man. I know you.
Can you blame me, though? The world is crazy. So.
That's right. So, with that being said, I want to kind of go into where I started this season, which was actually some pretty good. It was actually perfect timing when I started Conspiracy this year. I did it right after the supposed disclosure files came out about JFK, which opened up a whole avenue of conversation. And I really found this year in Conspiracy to be, it was really gratifying for me, you know, because I was able to pull up some information that I've been wanting to talk about. And I really haven't had the time to do it, you know what I mean? So this was actually a perfect time for me to go into this series, and because it was those disclosure files. And I know that you're going to have some stuff to say about this too, Mr. Robot, because I know you were very interested in it when it first came out. So,
Hmm.
so with the one thing that the first thing actually that really stuck out to me when it came to those disclosure files was okay. First off, so that people understand, some people did believe that the CIA and the FBI and other government and non-government actors, I guess you could say, were involved in the assassination of JFK. Now, the first thing that really stuck out to me when it came to these newly declassified files, it was the fact that Harvey Oswald had possible ties to the CIA. CIA.
Yep.
Okay, now that's something that really did stick out to me. So
They sent him to Moscow as a spy, and then he ended up getting married there or something, didn't he?
well, he ended up getting married there, but these new files, which they said were new files that came out, is supposed to have hinted that Oswald might have been recruited by the CIA during his time in New Orleans, and that was like back in 1963. You
Oh
know,
yeah, it's clear as day when you just look at what he was up to and stuff.
and then they also say that there may have been certain incidents and ties that went even further during his time in Mexico City, which was a year before that. And the weird part about it too is that he was involved with the anti-Castro movement. You know what I mean? Which they
Mhm.
claim he was a Marxist. So if he was a Marxist, why would he be involved with the anti-Castro movement?
Yep.
Because different sects. I mean, um, not all commies are the same. The creation of the creation of Russia or creation of Russia after the Tsar fell. You had the right and reds fighting against each other. They were both technically communists. Trotsky was a communist, and he was dispelled by Stalin.
Now, the big question that needs to be answered, though, was these anti-Castro Cubans socialists? You know what I mean? That's one big thing that we really need to know. I'm not quite sure myself if they were actually if they were okay with the socialist agenda, or if they, because a lot of Cubans now that are like children and grandchildren of the anti-Castro movement, they seem to be more conservative. You know what I mean? They don't, from the people I've met, they don't seem to be freaking. As a matter of fact, they hate communism. You know what I mean? So that's something that really I should check out. I don't think I went in that deep to find out on them.
I'll just say Senator Richard Schweiker remarked that everywhere you look with Oswald, there's fingerprints of intelligence, and former CIA finance officer James Wilcott testified that he heard claims Oswald was a CIA agent, though these claims have not been substantiated by official sources. He also, in October 1963, about 6 weeks before the JFK assassination, Oswald traveled to Mexico City. During his 6-day stay, he visited the Cuban and Soviet embassies multiple times, attempting to secure visas to travel to Cuba and then to the Soviet Union. His goal appeared to be arranging to return to the USSR or a visit to Cuba. The CIA had extensive surveillance on Oswald during his Mexico City trip, including phone taps, photographs, and logs of his movements. The CIA's Mexico City station chief, Winston Scott, amassed a large file on Oswald's activities there. So they were well aware of him, before all this happened.
Well, see,
I really,
let me do a little history lesson here too on that. All right, now this goes into the Warren Commission as well, because in the original Warren Commission files that was released, they didn't delve deeply into the possibility that Oswald may have been a CIA asset. You know what I mean? That was something that they actually have started discussing, about the fact that, like, there wasn't very much. It was like they either just ignored it, or they purposely avoided the fact that he could have been a CIA asset. You know what I mean?
mm,
So these are like new revelations that came out. I think 1991 was when the first files were released, and then these new ones. So I mean, I just wanted to point that out too, because I've gone over what you just said right
and there's
there.
a lot of other suspicious things, like the photos that got doctored. Remember that photo where he's like holding the gun in his backyard?
Yep.
That is a completely like doctored photo. He was actually like holding a newspaper, and like they found the original photo, and like someone had photoshopped in the gun. Well, it wouldn't have been photoshopped back then, but they put the gun in there to sort of make it look like he's more credible of a shooter, whatever. And there was another photo where he was actually photographed in front of the school book depository building as JFK was getting shot. So he wasn't even in the building. Yeah, a lot of weird things like that.
I know Mark Edward has something to say. He started grinning and stuff.
No, I was just thinking was that no, Mr. Robert's Photoshop comment. Yeah, no, I was also thinking about all those doctored photographs from the Soviet Union at the time, where entire people disappeared.
Another thing about Oswald that really sticks out to me is like his relationship with his wife. Like whenever he died, they did their best to vilify this man. They made it out like he was abusive to his wife and beat her and shit, and had temper tantrums and problems with all that. I mean, how did they know this shit? You know what I mean?
And who doesn't,
No, I mean, you know what I mean. It's like all of a sudden they have all this information about how abusive he was to his wife. He was just a horrible, horrible person. You know what I mean? It's like,
the cover up was intense, man. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
and
Like,
it just seemed like, and this was even before the disclosures came out. How I picked up on that, I remember Quantum Leap came out with a TV series. With Quantum Leap, the TV series came out with a few episodes actually of Oswald, and they pointed that out on the show, and that's when I started noticing, like, even television shows were like government shills. You know what I mean? They were paid to freaking put this kind of propaganda on it, which is something that I'll eventually get back into. But
Were they? Well,
the
that
CIA
particular show
bragged
was it?
about.
hold on, what was you gonna say, Mark?
Yeah, that particular show did it. Was it being paid off?
Well, there's other
Well,
things too, and there's shows that I actually like that later on I've figured out was actually government shills too. Like, for example, I love freaking MacGyver. Okay, I love MacGyver. I still love MacGyver to this day, even though I know this stuff. But let's take a look at MacGyver. Okay, MacGyver, who did he work for? He worked for the Phoenix Foundation, which was a think tank. So this show is perpetuating the idea that MacGyver is a great guy who's very smart and gets out of these situations, and he works for a think tank, which is great. And then I started putting two and two together, and then that brought me to the Knight Rider. Who does Michael Knight work for? Michael Knight works for the Foundation of Law and Government. You see? And I never picked up on this stuff when I was younger, but I loved MacGyver and I loved Knight Rider, you know? And that's what these foundations in the show were. They were think tanks. And I think that a lot of people today use the word think tank and they don't realize exactly what it is or what they are. You know what I mean? That's another issue that I believe is a problem that a lot of people don't pick up on. They don't understand it. They just kind of skim through the words and they don't realize what they actually are and what they mean, you know?
Yeah, like the Trilateral Commission and stuff like that.
That's where I'm going with that, Mark. Just
Carlyle Group. They're
Is that-
big ones.
I mean, what's your opinion on that, Mark? Do you agree with think tanks? Do you think they're a positive influence on society?
Can be. I'm not going to make a blanket. I'm not going to make a blanket statement, but every single think tank out there, yeah,
Okay.
depends on the specific.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Robot.
A think tank is a group or institution organized for intensive research and solving of problems, especially in areas of technology, social or political strategy, and armament. That's the problem areas, is the political strategy and armament. You know?
We'll get into the technology stuff here too, because you'll start kind of seeing some things that are taking place. You know what I mean? When it comes to all three of them put together. You know, that's actually the weird part about this year, is because things actually, when I put them together, it seems like this year when I did conspiracy, I was a lot more organized and thorough, and things just started popping out that I never caught. Like the thing I talked about with MacGyver and Knight Rider and things of that nature. You know what I mean? I knew it, but I didn't realize how freaking intense it was that these shows were getting funded to freaking support this stuff and say, hey, look how great we are. You know what I mean? How many other TV shows were doing that? Like, I remember Airwolf. You know what I mean? Airwolf was, I hope the heck I don't watch that and find out some horrible thing, because I loved Airwolf. You know.
Okay.
What was the think tank I just mentioned before?
What was it?
Trilateral.
Well, I really don't know for sure if that exists, to be honest with you. I've heard
Not a tank.
trilateral commission has been used in a lot of terminology. Pinpointing what exactly they're talking about is something that I've had an issue with since I started doing this stuff. What exactly?
The Carlyle Group profited of the post 9/11 war and its preparations. That was like George Bush and Prime Minister John Mayer, former Secretary of State James Baker, investments from Saudi Arabia, pay-to-play practices. The Trilateral Commission is often viewed by conspiracy theorists as a secretive elite group plotting to establish global government or the New World Order. Critics like Noam Chomsky argue that commission seeks to limit genuine democratic participation by the public, promoting elite control and redefining democracy to serve their interests.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
See,
yeah.
this is an area that I went into too with Kennedy. All right, now during Kennedy's presidency, one of the biggest issues uh, in the United States was the Philippine relationships. Uh, now, the Americans, we had freaking military bases within the Philippines, and back, I'd say back in like maybe 2012, 13, there was a lot of, well, not a lot, but there were a few people that mentioned this right here, and it was something that they felt that was important. It kind of caught my attention, but that kind of goes into it, and then the nuclear proliferation that was going on during that time period. Okay, now what I found in that really didn't make JFK out to be such a great person. Like I've heard, like Robert Morningstar talking about how he was like this great individual because now what I found about that whole deal with the military bases in the Philippines was the fact that okay, JFK understood that that he needed those bases, okay, and the reason why he needed those bases was because he was trying to slow down the communists from moving outward, you know what I mean, and taking over parts of the Philippines and areas like that, and plus Vietnam was escalating, so he had to basically do negotiations with them just so that he could keep those bases alive because they were important to him, so that he could get troops into Vietnam, and plus,
But Kennedy was against Vietnam, though.
that's what everybody says. But as a matter of fact, during his presidency, the Vietnam War escalated. It got worse.
But he didn't commit American troops at that time, did he?
No, well, that was Nixon, first of all. And Kennedy couldn't just pull those troops out. He was a bit more sensible than, let's say, Biden.
So there was already troops there.
Right.
Yeah.
The war was already in place when Kennedy was in office. And
I didn't know that. I thought it started up.
it was beginning to escalate after. And he had to worry about these bases in the Philippines, okay? Because he knew that they were important for getting troops into Vietnam and plus preventing the spread of communism, which he was really obsessed over. I mean, he really was. That's one reason why the Bay of Pigs happened, is because he did not want that to happen. So he was really.
Everyone at that time was pretty scared of communism, really. It was like a huge thing in the media at that time.
Right.
Actually, wasn't it under Eisenhower? It was Eisenhower. Eisenhower. That Vietnam War Korea started.
I don't know exactly. I believe it might have been Eisenhower. Yeah.
Yeah. He served 2 terms from 53 to 61.
Mm-hmm.
And now they just let the communists in.
See, when I checked all that out earlier before, and what I was hearing is like these people were trying to come up with a theory that Kennedy was eventually going to hand power back over to the Philippine government so that they could have control over these bases, because there was a nationalist movement that was going on during that time where they viewed these bases under U.S. control as another form of colonialism, basically, and they were becoming more and more aggressive about higher rent for these bases to be in their territories, as well as more power over saying what can and can't be done on them. So
Yeah.
that became a big issue, and JFK was negotiating with them so that he could keep it going. Eventually, they ended up closing these bases in the '90s, I believe. Like they shut them down, and that was
China, same thing there now. Yeah.
that was one of the things that really stuck out to me. And I did research on it, and I found out that yeah, he had to do the negotiations and stuff, but there was no indication that he had plans to shut those down. Now I can tell you,
Well, I would argue that if he shut them down and gave the territory back to the Philippines, then there would be an easy entry for the Soviets.
well, the Subic Bay is the one that was it was a critical port for the U.S. Navy. You know what I mean? And their air base it provided a lot of air support so that they could send freaking planes in and out. You know what I mean? That was a real big. It was a key to their operations during the Vietnam War. You know.
Where was located in respect to the U.S.?
This was in the Philippines.
Yeah. But geographically, where it's located compared to where the U.S. is, it's quite a relatively easy hop, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it is. I mean, if you want to, Mr. Robot, you can pull it up on your map if you want to, because I got
Pull up what? Sorry.
Let me see. I can find it. It's Clark. No, it's a U.S. Navy. I don't know if it'd be there. Subic Bay would be the best. Subic Bay, SUBIC.
SUBIC Bay.
That would be in the Philippines. So yeah, you're looking.
Former U.S. naval base now offering beaches, aquarium, and theme parks. That sounds way nicer.
But yeah, that was the key area that they needed during the Vietnam War. Now that's in Vietnam.
I'm just zooming out.
Yeah.
Manila, so it's in the Philippines, but you can see it's close to Vietnam. It's just across there.
Yeah. See that was what was causing a lot of issues, from what I found out. It was basically a strategic output, or an outlet, I guess you could say, or standpoint. Outpost. Yeah.
Also, what were countries like Australia, and did Australia and Great Britain have any interest in that area?
Well, I to be honest,
Probably not really. We're like just here.
Britain,
So.
yeah, but Britain mainly. Australians just being a proxy of.
Australia was drugged into the Vietnam War by the
English. Well, was dragged into Korea, to be more specific, rather than Vietnam.
I think
Vietnam was mainly US.
I think they lost just as many people from the Vietnam War as what we have. That's the one big thing that Australia and the United States has in common, is the amount of people we lost in that war. You know what I mean? Because like the Australians lost a lot of men in that war too. I mean, it's remembered just as much by them as what it is by us.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the previous Korean War, rather than Vietnam specifically.
Well, that's because you're English, though. like you.
Well, it's all both are connected, directly connected.
With England, I think England had more involved in the Korean War than what they did in
Yeah,
Vietnam. You
yeah.
know, so
Not
now
as much as the French, but still.
now what I also want to mention too is like after JFK's assassination, the thing that really sticks out to me is the fact that these negotiations with the islands, the Philippines, um, kind of went away when freaking Ford took office. You know what I mean? Like, so there may have been something going on there, but I personally haven't found anything to indicate that. You know, I've actually searched it out and I haven't found anything that indicates that like JFK was going to turn these bases over to the Philippines, and that's the reason why he could have been assassinated. I'm not.
I can see that
I
happening.
read that it was because he wanted to pull out of the war. That's why they turned against him, because especially the oil men in Texas,
Mhm.
because they were funding, like they were supporting the war effort, and LBJ among them, and they basically financed as far as I could tell, financed the assassination via the CIA
Mhm.
um, to do it. So, and then they benefited from LBJ going back into the war afterwards.
Right. He basically did turn his eyes away from negotiating with the Philippines, like after that. And then that brings us into the next part that I did bring up this season. It was about the nuclear testing that was taking place there as well. And like when you're talking about oil magnates and everything, you got to remember that they had freaking their eyes on energy even back then. Like now we have these nuclear power plants and stuff like that. Trust me, that was still something that they were wanting to do with it even back then while they were doing nuclear testing with the military. And I get, so there was a lot of people invested into it, and I would almost guarantee you that these oil magnates had their fingers involved in it in some way or another too. Um, that's just
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
Lafayette was one of them, and they were bragging about it because they were meeting with Nixon and George Bush, and they kind of bragged about wanting to kill Kennedy. It came out at some point.
Mhm. Now that's another area that the Philippine nations had issues with when it came to the nuclear testing and stuff like that. So that was a big tension, and um, the United States through uh, JFK's administration, they were committed to like reducing the nuclear testing in the Pacific. But even though they were doing that, tensions were still growing, from them, and that was mostly because of France. Okay, the United States and all of their allies were backing off of some of the testing that were taking place there, but France just would not freaking comply. They just kept doing their testing, and that's where I went into the story of the atolls. Mamarua, I believe, is what it's called. I have a hard time pronouncing it, but have you ever heard the story behind Bikini Atoll?
Where they did the nuclear testing.
Yes.
Uh, what specifically? What about it?
Well, the whole story in general. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I mean, I watched some of the videos and stuff. I don't know if there's anything particular, but yeah, they moved people off an island and gave them new homes on a different island, and then blew the freaking island up. It's ridiculous.
I mean, they literally contaminated the entire region. Okay.
Yeah, even today you can't go on some of those islands.
And some of the people that were in the atolls actually were contaminated too, and it was pretty severe for the amount of people that were there. You know what I mean?
And
Everybody.
poor people had no even idea what a nuclear weapon was. They're like, yeah, we'll give you money. All you have to do is this, this, this. Oh, yeah. Totally unethical.
They ended up doing that was back during the time when they did the partial test ban treaty, and that was back in 1963. Um, and by that time, the situation became volatile. I mean, people were in the Pacifics were fed up with it. You know what I mean? Particularly when it came to the French nuclear testing, they were some of the worst when it came to it. Now the United States was still doing theirs, but the French just they wouldn't comply with it. And Kennedy knew better to freaking than to come down on France because of it. Because like I said, he was big on trying to keep the spread of communism out. You know what I mean? So he had to negotiate with all these people. So he's got to negotiate with the Filipinos and the French and all of these other countries. Meanwhile, every country in the Pacific was sick and tired of their shit. You know, that's what I've basically found to be to be that's what I found when I did my research on it.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of the nuclear testing that was being done in the Pacific during that time, it was irresponsible and dangerous. And a lot of these Pacific Island leaders, they were sick of it. They just they didn't want it anymore. They I think that could have been another issue when it comes to the things that were taking place with these oil magnates. When it comes to because that was where the money was. You know what I'm saying? They were doing research on nuclear power, nuclear energy, and I guarantee you they had their fingers in it. So there was a lot of pressure on Kennedy concerning nuclear weapons and shit of that nature. So, what do you think, Mark? You're getting quiet.
I'm just thinking that at the time, back in that era, actually 59 to 69, de Gaulle was president of of France, the second term. Remember, he was the president of France between 1944 and 1946 as well. He was a military general, wasn't he? He had a background in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, considering the Cold War, he had a real interest in defense and obviously nuclear weapons being the new thing at the time.
Yeah.
It's during the 1960s that the Israel acquisition of U.S. nuclear material and secrets happened through various covert operations and incidents. One notable case was NUMEC affair, where hundreds of pounds of highly enriched uranium went missing from a NUMEC facility in Pennsylvania. Suspicions arose that this material was diverted to Israel's nuclear weapons program. The FBI and CIA investigated Zalman Shapiro and President NUMEC due to the president of NUMEC due to to his Zionist connections and business dealings with Israeli officials. Additionally, there were allegations that Israel stole bomb-grade uranium from a U.S. nuclear fuel processing plant during the same period. Newly released documents on the NUMEC affair added significant evidence supporting these claims, prompting calls for greater transparency from the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Now, just to let everybody know, too, I have done an episode where I talked about Karen Silkworth in this situation, and that is something else worth looking at because Karen Silkworth, her story is very, very interesting, and that could tie in with a lot of what Mr. Robot was talking there. She ended up mysteriously dying from a car crash where she was found with her car plowed into a tree on the way from meeting a reporter about information concerning the power plant that she had been working, or the nuclear facility that she had been working for. That was not keeping up to code and regulation when it comes to doing what they were supposed to be doing. She ended up contracting radiation poisoning, and she was going to die because of it, which is kind of odd too, because of the amount that she would have had to have been introduced to. So allegations came out of that, and that
Was there a standardized regulatory body at the time?
yes, there is. As a matter of fact, that was one of the big issues because like people that work in these plants, they have their own like unionized organization, and she reported it to her quote unquote union, and it seemed as if nothing was going to be done with it. So she turned around and she went higher and reported it to the regulatory commission that was supposed to be involved, and it just kept escalating and escalating until suddenly one night there was a mysterious car accident. It's a pretty interesting story. Like I said, I've already done an episode of that, but that is good that you brought that up, Mr. Robot. I was going to gloss right through that whole subject because I've actually done a lot of really, really cool stuff on this whole topic. You know what I mean? So I really do like how I did my conspiracy this year, to be honest with you. So I'm really glad. And the countries that were involved outside of the Philippine leaders that were opposed to France and their nuclear testing in the Pacific was Australia and New Zealand. So just so you know, even Australia and New Zealand got tired of France's bullshit. Said enough is enough. Sound good? So after that, what happened is that I started going more into JFK's assassination, and I came across speculations that's been going on for decades. And this gets into the oil magnates that Mr. Robot was talking about. Now, there's been a lot of theories that that implicate George H.W. Bush and his oil company Zapata Offshore as being involved with the CIA, and also possible affiliations with, or actually being involved in the Kennedy assassination. So that's where I started finding out.
Oh, 100%. I think George Bush was like deeply involved with that. Like, have you heard that phone call that he made on the day of the assassination? He makes this like really suspicious sounding phone call to, I think it was FBI headquarters. He's just like says nothing at all during the phone call, but it turned out that was his alibi kind of thing. And it was like so intentional, if you know what I mean. And also there was that photograph where he was like filmed outside of the school book depository building as the assassination goes on. I'll see if I can pull it up.
Now, what I found out was like Zapata Offshore was actually affiliated with the CIA in quite a bit of ways. Like they would actually do operations, like for the Bay of Pigs, for example. One of their cargo ships was actually one of the ships that were transporting the Cubans over to the Bay of Pigs for the attempted invasion. I did find that out, and then I've also found out that he was trying to establish himself, not only in the world of business but politics back then as well. You know what I mean? I found out that he co-founded Zapata offshore, but I don't know who he co-founded it with. I haven't. I don't know much about that right there.
So people are speculating that this person standing in front of the school book depository building is George Bush. And you can see they look pretty damn similar. Wear the same tie, comb over is the same, facial structure is the same. Yeah, I think that was him.
Yeah.
So the conspiracy goes.
And none of that was ever mentioned in any of the disclosure pay, by the way. Like that was none of it. Not even in the news.
Oh, that was a total cover up, man. Like they basically said nothing, those papers. And there's like so many papers that weren't disclosed.
Mhm.
You know, they just held back the important stuff.
Well, the
It
thing,
reminds me a lot of the whole Epstein release. Where it's like, here's the binders, guys. Yay, it's done.
the thing about Bush that stands out a lot to conspiracy theorists is the fact that Zapata Oil was able to operate within Cuba. You know what I mean? It's like, and that they were supposedly a small oil company, you know, yet they were able to operate in areas like Cuba and other areas where U.S. companies weren't allowed to operate in. So that kind of makes you raise an eyebrow to that. You know what I mean? It raises suspicion, in my opinion, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, you know, they do know that freaking one of the company ships was used in the Bay of Pigs, or it was a failed invasion, but one of them were actually used. Now that ship was called the Houston, just so everybody knows, the Houston, and it was owned by Zapata Offshore. But I don't know for sure if it was delivering like actual people or if it was just delivering like supplies and stuff of that nature. I'm not too sure on that one.
And wasn't it the what did they call that? Where they hired those mercenaries to go attack Castro? They stayed on some of those oil islands, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. They stayed on the islands, but the actual ships too, like they were transporting supplies and all that kind of shit over to Cuba, so that because see the plan was that these troops were supposed to land on the freaking shores and their supplies would be there waiting for them.
It was Bay of Pigs, wasn't it? Is that what it's called? Bay of
Yes.
Pigs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, I didn't find anything about the phone call. Okay, but what I did find is that in 1992, when they did the first disclosure for JFK, they found a memo that was released that showed the name George H.W. Bush, and it was listed in a CIA document, and that list, it was a list of people who were supposed to be a part of the intelligence community at the time. You know what I mean? So his name shows up on this memo of a list of people who are supposed to be a freaking CIA asset, but everybody's like, well, that could have been anyone. There's a lot of people named HG or HW Bush. It could have been anybody. You know,
Well, Bush is probably a very common name.
H.W. Bush.
No, it's not.
H.
In the US?
Well, do a Google search real quick on the name H.W. Bush and find out how many people pop up.
Oh, you'll only find one. That's for sure.
I doubt that.
You know. Or do it and then just only use the link that goes to like the phone book. But then there's like 50 states, so you got 50 states with different phone books in each state. You know.
Do people even use phone books these days?
Mm.
Reverse phone lookup? Is that white pages? Do
Okay.
you remember the old white pages that we used to have?
Remember the old actual the British thick yellow telephone book that you
Yep.
Yeah.
used to get?
Do you guys remember the difference between the white pages and the yellow pages?
The yellow pages was a British invention.
What was his name? Herbert Walker Bush.
No, just H.W. Bush, since that was the name on the list. Just H.W. Bush.
Oh, H.W. Bush.
So that we can be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, but that's based on current records.
Well, I know.
There's a W.H. Bush, but not a H.W. Bush. 104 people found, but not specifically in that order, you know.
On your filters, do you have a way of saying that you specifically want to search for it and to not add the other ones?
No, not really.
See, that's why I love Google.
This website won't even let me click on anything, so it's completely broken. I can't even scroll down. What the hell?
They've shut you down then, like you people from foreign countries aren't allowed to look at our information.
No, it's probably just my browser. What do you call it? Restrictions, or like JavaScript or something. I don't know. I'll try a different browser.
But yeah, I mean that was what I found with it. Now, after that, what I wanted to do is I wanted to discuss the Warren Commission. And more specifically, there's a guy on there that frickin' I wanted to discuss, and that's Dulles. Okay, Alan Dulles. You guys,
Kennedy kicked him out, didn't he?
well, that's the whole thing that's involving the Warren Commission. Okay, with the Warren Commission after JFK was assassinated. Ford appointed these people to freaking be on this commission. And I found that about a little bit over 40, no, I'd say about a little bit over 80% of the people on that freaking commission did not like JFK or were involved in some pretty nefarious dealings. You know what I mean? Today, I just wanted to recap over Dulles because he was he was probably the most key person when it comes to what I've been going through this season. You know, and the other ones were pretty nefarious too. Don't get me wrong, and I do have them on my previous episodes of it, but that's the one that I really wanted to talk about. And you're right, he was actually kicked out by JFK, but his whole involvement in freaking the CIA goes a lot deeper than the president of the United States. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you guys want to take a quick break so I can use the bathroom and then I can come back and we can do this again because I'm ready. And I'll put on your cool music. Mark can mute out, and we can come back, okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. Awakening from history, awakening from duality. The liberation of the human soul to consciousness of the one and all. The activation of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man, a new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing into unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery, a mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. is this lure? The thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, thistle sifter.
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his star-born accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waves at his command. Empire stretched from Baobic stones to Mayan sand. Monolith stacked like Legos blocks no crane could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven's stories untold. Ages of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Go turn to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Vessels of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From these tetragonical recalls, ancient awe as above, so below. Cosmic empire of law and princes of plasma. Their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis where gods walked the sea.
Watch the fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hummed warnings, but they ignored the signs. Skies split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sang screaming, a blueprint survived. Baalbek's foundation, stones that define modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they aligned the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, the cold tension all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of law, 10 princes of plasma. Their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis where gods walk the sea.
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, organ fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones in the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis taller than gods crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammals shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up the piston, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds. Stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset. Scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist. Cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes. Built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now desert bones whisper where cedars once soared. Man's just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Ten princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea. So when you see Stonehenge, Angkor Wat spire, know Atlantis lives in the quantum choir. The gods were myths, their mentors in code. Rise from the ashes, or repeat what they owe. They built the pyramids in 20 years, a block every 2 minutes. Hieroglyphs scream their pride, but not a how and what's written. Modern science scratches heads, these structures can't be mimicked. Copper tools, now scholars tripping, logic thinly stretched and twisted. Ran an obelisk, 1,000 tons dragged across the sand. Today's cranes can't lift a fifth, what force moved them by hand? Call the ancients primitive, yo, that's pure delusion. Physicists today need miracles to crack their fusion. The high priest of Kemet mapped the stars with precision, while modern minds stay chained to 3D prison. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden was an allegorical crypt. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in simple living secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemic pyramid ode. The Sphinx wears water scars, a flood from ancient skies. Explosives crack the pyramids, no tombs, just hollow lies. Money stolen? Nah, that's ego talk, a weak hypothesis. Truths buried in the stars, encrypted in the myths. Sacred geometry, pagan songs, the roots of Christendom. Pythagoras knelt at their feet, Jesus learned the kingdom. Temples mirror Orion, Aztecs trace the same glow. Megalithic GPS, what's buried below. They split the lotus stem, hid wisdom at the core. Solomon's temple, just a copy of what came before. Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, hidden wisdom, allegorical crypts. Written in the language of symbolism, advanced knowledge cloaked in simple living secrets that rewrite history's episode. As above, so below, the hermetic code. Key of life unlocks the heavenly abode. Conscious matrix, alchemic pyramid ode. Iron to gold, alchemy's flame, they mastered the unseen. Telekinetic levitation, Mars dust in their genes. Critics laugh, aliens but the proof's in the plasma. Why is the Dogon tribe no serious? Was a binary drama. Myths and metaphors, the truth's too bright to hold. Scattered in ruins worldwide, a map etched in gold. They call themselves Negeru, gods with cosmic ships. Gifted fire, math and law, then dipped beyond the eclipse. Now academia's gatekeepers mock what they can't measure. But the scales of Ma'at weigh soul, not tech or treasure. The Zet Tepe dawned when gods walked as king. Left blueprints in Gobekli Tepe and the Nazca line. The emerald tablets truth burns through the scholar's denial. We're echoes of starlight reclaiming our trial.
When you stare at the sky, feel the ache in your chest. That's ancestral memory. We're all cosmic guests. The pyramids home a hymn, rising call the divine. As above, so below, till the world's realigned.
Land of the lost, esoteric Egypt, the truth's a spiral, eternity script. In the language of symbolism, we're gods we've been missing.
are back. If you guys enjoyed that music, that was brought to us by a guy who goes by Illuminati on Rumble. And you can catch him on Rumble at his channel called Hacker Radio. We won't go in too deep on who Illuminati is because he comes from destinations unknown. A man of
Still a mystery to this day.
That's right. A man of
Might know
secrecy.
it's a-
Man of extreme knowledge about the esoteric and the unknown.
Yeah, he goes deep.
He goes deep, real deep. So
what's our next conspiracy, Roger?
Mark, you wanted to say something, didn't you?
Carry on.
Okay. So I wanted to, like I said before we stopped, I wanted to get into the Warren Commission and dive deep into just Alan Dulles. Now, here in the United States, a lot of people tout about how great this man was. They even freaking turn around and made an airport in his name, but a lot of people really don't have an idea or a clue just how freaking evil this man was. A few people do, but they're usually considered conspiracy theorists and kooks. So
that's around the time they came up with that term too.
Yeah. Now, this is one of the guys that was a big part of the CIA in the United States. He was right there at the beginning. I believe he was actually the first person who wasn't a part of the military or the government that served as he's the first civilian director, basically, is what it is, of the CIA. And he oversaw all of that during the time that people started. Actually, people didn't start talking about it, but it was during the time that MK Ultra came around being, and he was big on the whole MK Ultra movement. And before Mark starts giving his twitchy eye and everything, I want to make a point clear that MK Ultra actually did exist. Okay, let's just take away the craziness and stuff, and
I don't even think that's debated anymore, is it?
Well, there are some people who still don't believe that MK Ultra existed.
Some idiots who don't know history.
I've been on enough of the Vixen's Vote episodes to have that to be convinced.
Oh wow! See, he is growing up, Roger. Told you it would happen.
He has become
on that one subject.
Yeah, and he has been more open-minded about a lot of this stuff too since he's gone down this path. Just take it from an outsider's point of view. I'm just doing a review of you, okay, Mark? You have actually freaking become more open-minded since
you started hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Give it another few months and you'll believe in aliens too.
Yeah, I've always been open-minded.
Well, not as well as what you are now.
Maybe.
I mean, you're still open-minded a lot more than what you were when I first met you on stuff like this. You know what I mean? Just to let you know. Not very much, because this stuff does go quite a bit deep. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of it that I don't agree with either, but there's a lot of it that does make sense, and there is a lot of it that's actually recorded that wasn't even freaking classified. You know, open to everybody to check out and find for themselves. You know. And Alan Dulles is a perfectly good example of that. So, with him
and his brother, that was in the CIA. Was it CIA or FBI?
He was a CIA.
Yeah.
Now, he was educated in Princeton and he was a veteran of diplomatic and intelligence work. He represented the archetype of the American Cold War strategist, is what I found. Now, he was big on the whole thing about the Cold War, too. And the thing with him, though, is he believed all of the stories about the Russians and all of these in China being involved in mental manipulation and being able to control people uh, with their research. So he wanted to get into that aspect, and that's where he finally approved of the MK Ultra program coming into existence. Now, the whole thing about Princeton too is something else that has to be brought up, because Princeton is a big player when it comes to a lot of these psychological warfare kind of things that they practice when it comes to MK Ultra. There, and plus, me and Mark started talking about DARPA, and we'll get into DARPA too eventually here in a minute. But what Dulles was involved in was he was involved in creating MK Ultra, and MK Ultra was about psychological warfare. It was about disinformation, also about sabotage, and he was also big on manipulating both foreign populations like England and Europe, as well as domestic here in the United States. And they used to refer to this as like statecraft. You know what I mean? They had a real cool name for it. It was called statecraft, where they could actually craft the way that they felt freaking the population within these regions should think about certain topics and things of that nature. Now, MK Ultra is what we go into from this point on. You know, I've walked.
Wait 1 second. So Dulles was represented pre-war Nazis and later served as a CIA director, was recruited as a British agent in 1940. When the first CIA director, Walter Brendel Smith, wanted prominent Americans as members of the shadowy and elitist Bilderberger organization, he said he turned the matter over to the CD Jackson, and things got really going. So I just want to see one more thing, what they say here about Dulles. This is Jim Ma's book, Crossfire. He did like 30 years of research on the JFK assassination. Apparently Dulles didn't know much about the plan. So like, yeah, Dulles was involved with the Cuban Bay of Pigs thing, and Kennedy was upset with him because they messed it up. And so he kicked him out of the CIA. And then after Kennedy got shot, he was the head of the Warren Commission, even though he was like totally against Kennedy. So there was like a bit of a conflict of interest there. And a lot of people believe he was involved in the cover-up. Yeah.
Well,
I just thought that should be mentioned.
That's a good point. And also, let's point out the fact that Johnson was one that appointed the Warren Commission. You know what I mean? So he intentionally appointed a man who freaking 100% disliked JFK to investigate his death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, come on, tell me that's not suspicious.
That is definitely suspicious.
You know. No, does he have anything to say about MK Ultra at all?
Let's have a look. I think he wrote a book on it, actually.
I mean, with Dulles. Let's focus on Dulles, because, like I said, Mars had a lot of good information, but like he he didn't dive all that deep when it came to
Well, this
stuff.
was in the very early days of Kennedy research, right? This is before there was even internet, really. So, you a lot more has been found out since then.
Well, plus like with that time period, there people knew about MK Ultra, but it really wasn't as popular as what it was in today's world. You know what I mean? Like it was popular on television and stuff of that nature. Like, but you didn't really hear too many people get into the whole subject of MK Ultra here
So,
lately.
Alan, oh, sorry, what were you
Here
saying?
here lately, people have, but not back then. Go ahead.
Alan Dulles, who served as director of the CIA from 1953 to 1961, had a direct and significant connection to Project MK Ultra. He officially launched the program himself on April 13, 1953, as a response and concerns about the potential mind control techniques being used by the Soviet Union, China, and North Korea during the Korean War. The project aimed to develop procedures to identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and extract confessions through brainwashing and psychological manipulation. Under Dulles' leadership,
Right.
MK
Now,
Ultra
MK Ultra's reach was pretty vast. It operated through like
yeah, and universities and stuff like that. Even up in Canada, they did experiments.
Actually,
Um,
drug confession then stretches way back to the 30s.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you guys all saw the videos of soldiers on LSD and all that.
yeah.
Well, that stretches, yeah, that began with Germany, didn't it? During
Nah,
World War One.
Well, they well see. There's a lot of things that are significant when it comes to Operation Paperclip that can be tied in with MK Ultra, but there's no direct connection. You know what I'm saying? Like they used a lot of Operation Paperclip's information for
mm-hmm.
MK Ultra, but they didn't actually use the people who were involved with Operation Paperclip. So yeah, there is influence there, but it's not direct. You know what I mean? They used the research that they pulled from Operation Paperclip and they incorporated it into MK Ultra. So you do have that.
And like basically, like Operation Paperclip was like the foundation of uh, American innovation after that war period, because like they inherited like all of Germany's science basically, and the
Well,
Germans were like
not
way ahead
all
of
of
their
it.
time.
Not all of it.
Um,
The
not all of
Soviets,
it.
the Soviets did capture a few engineers and technicians
Right.
and so.
Russia got a few, and also Hitler squirreled away some of it in Antarctica apparently.
Now,
Um,
now I do want to point out one thing about the Russian side as well. I did dive into some of the previous topics or videos that I did this season. I'm not going to bring it up much. I'll talk about it if Robot and Mark wants to, but I went as far on that side as mentioning IKEA and the slave labor that they used the Nazi prisoners for on the Russian side, as well as here in on the European side, the supposedly free Germany side. Um,
mhm.
there was a lot of that going on, but I wanted to try to stay on topic with this episode and not get too far off to the left or right on it. You know what I mean? But that is a big thing that I do have a video on if anybody's interested in that. And like I said, I'll discuss it if you guys want to bring it up, but I'm not gonna.
If we want to keep it brief, then you've already covered it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to say something, I'm cool with it. Is all I'm saying.
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay. Because that was a big topic back And see, this is something else too. Like after 2015, I'd say there's been this big shift where information has just kind of like disappeared, and people don't talk about this stuff, you know. And
Oh, it's so hard to find stuff online nowadays.
IKEA was a big topic before 2015, man, and nobody talks about it anymore. Nobody talks about the labor camps that were involved with old uh, Nazi war criminals. You know what I mean? And it did happen. It did happen. That's not freaking conspiracy.
IKEA, as in like the store.
Yes, IKEA, the store.
The only company.
Yeah, there was others that were involved in it,
Yeah.
but they
I
were.
didn't know that. I used to buy their stuff.
Hmm. But yeah. Now, what was it? The drug experiments. You guys were talking
You
about
want me
that.
to go on about Dulles?
Yeah.
Under Dulles' leadership, MKUltra explored various methods of mind control, including covert administration of psychoactive drugs such as LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, and others. The program conducted experiments without the knowledge of or consent of the subjects, raising serious ethical concerns and later leading to widespread condemnation of the CIA's actions. Dulles' involvement in MKUltra extended beyond its inception, and he oversaw the program during its formative years and was instrumental in shaping its objectives and methodologies. The program was directed by Sidney Gottlieb, another evil dude, but its initiation and early direction were closely tied to Dulles' vision for intelligence operations during the Cold War. So,
Now, I also pulled up some stuff that involved programs of experimentation, which involved what they called electroconvulsive therapy,
ECG. Yeah.
and that's the combination of barbiturates and stimulants, and that's supposed to break down the individual's thinking, that their thought process, and so that they could be reprogrammed. Now, in several cases,
Similar treatments were used in psychology
mhm,
up to something like the 80s.
they still do it sometimes. It's not.
It
It's not as
depends on
common.
the country. Yeah, depends on the country. But I'm just
Um, But the real conspiracy is they told us that those experiments amassed to nothing, and that they ended the program, and it's all hunky dory. But in actual fact, the program did have results, and they did figure out how to program people, and it's even in a more sophisticated state now, but it's like totally top secret. So I've heard some whistleblower testimony of like how they program people to, like,
yeah.
all sorts of stuff. I don't even want to go into it, but it's nasty stuff.
Now, the thing of it is it's like a lot of the individuals that were responsible, they've been shielded by like layers of not anonymity and secrecy. Okay, and the truth about this stuff is that several cases who were involved in these methods, what it caused to them was like freaking a lot of psychological damage, and some of them even died from it. You know, when we take a look at the story of the Unabomber, I mentioned that in in one of my episodes too. The Unabomber, they found out, was actually doing some of while he was in college. He was actually Ted Kaczynski. He was actually involved in some of these experiments that were taking place on the campus that he was in. He was on. You know, and then all of a sudden, years later, this guy's out in the middle of nowhere, freaking got his whole freaking shack freaking booby trapped, and he's bombing freaking federal buildings.
It's probably a bit upset about what they did to him.
Yeah, I'd say there was some psychological damage that was involved. You know what I mean?
Well, it must have been pretty smart if he was like making bombs by himself, I think.
Well, that's the thing. Kaczynski was very intelligent. From what I've found about him, he was actually he was a very intelligent person. He was a genius.
Mm.
So, but like I said, I did dive into that in a previous.
I haven't actually fully looked into that one in like 20 years, but I did look into the one, the Oklahoma City bombing,
Mhm.
and that was a total CIA operation. Basically, the CIA went to this CIA asset guy that they had. I can't remember his name right now, but he's the other guy that was with. Who was the main guy? Name escapes me right now. I'll look it up. But yeah, basically they just said, "Hey, we need you guys to basically park this van in front of this building for your country." Uh, Oklahoma.
Why CIA? Surely that's not their region. It would be FBI in this area.
FBI as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
CIA wouldn't be interested in. They've got no interest in national internal affairs.
Well, see, people get that clouded. Like they think just because they're obligated to work outside of the United States that they're not here in the United States, which is
But it's the
completely.
same difference with MI6 in this country. MI6
I
doesn't have
guarantee
any
you.
access. Huh?
I guarantee you,
um,
MI6 is in
McVeigh.
England right now, dude.
No, MI5 is, but MI6 wouldn't have any interest.
But get
And
this
as
right.
far as the UK is concerned, no. Between
Do you guys know who Bill Cooper is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I watched a video. It's like a rare video of Bill Cooper, and Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols came up to his house before they bombed the building, and basically said to him the whole story. They said, "Yeah, we've been hired by the government to carry out this plan, blah blah blah." And they put these chips in us to track us and stuff. And they showed him the chip, and he like felt their skin, and he said, "Yep, there's a chip there." And yeah, and like Timothy McVeigh hardly did any of the talking. All of the talking was done by the other guy, Terry Nichols. And and basically he's the one that never got covered in the media. Like he was the John Doe in the media, right? And it all got planted on Timothy McVeigh, and Timothy McVeigh was an army in the army, and yeah, the whole thing was basically an intelligence psyop. For what reason, I'm not sure. I don't know what laws got passed after that, but I'd say it would mean something to do with laws. Always is. Mm.
Now, I actually, before we started this, wanted to kind of. I was thinking about maybe saying it, but I guess this would be the best time to say it when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Like a lot of the stuff I went over, I couldn't honestly tell you what most of this amounts to because when I first started doing this series, I wanted to talk about more modern conspiracies and more particularly on like the New World Order and what people think of it. You know what I mean? And when I started it, I freaking started going through this stuff, and the whole point I wanted to make was the fact that like people think that the New World Order is coming, but the truth of the matter is it's already here. It's just we're too stupid to realize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it comes to what you were just saying and all of the agendas supposedly behind a lot of this, if people who actually research this stuff are honest with themselves and other people, they can honestly say that they really don't know what the outcome to this is. You know, it could be anything. There's some people who believe that it's an alien agenda. There's some people who believe that there's going to be a calling. There's some people who believe this and that, but the truth of the matter is, if they're honest with themselves, nobody really knows. You know what I mean?
Well, you can make some pretty close approximations, I think, like based on what we can see in the evidence. We know for a fact they're trying to basically create a one world government. All right, they even have an organization that's called the World Government Forum. Right, they meet up every year. They discuss how they're going to change things around the world, and it's an unelected body of people, and they just want to create more power for themselves. Right. And they were some of the same people that created the UN, the WEF, the MIF, the WEF, all that stuff. And these non-government bodies, transnational bodies, will their goal is to eventually bring them all together in one power structure. All right. We also know that they're trying to change the laws in all the different countries to basically limit the freedoms of people and keep them poor, right? While they get these huge funds like BlackRock and them to amass most of the wealth on the planet. And they're doing that at a crazy fast rate. At the same time, we do know that they're basically bankrupting every country by printing more and more money, devaluing the currencies, while the rich institutions buy up all the gold and the precious metals and stuff like that.
Okay.
We also know that they're buying
Whoa. Let's not run off with massive conspiracy theories that are totally incorrect. First of all, the UN and WEF and various other institutions were created by, especially the UN, was created by governments. This is well documented. All you have to do is do some research rather than playing on some sort of conspiracy theory. Sovereign money printing is defined by government and the banks of that country.
Who funded the creation of the UN?
Through taxpayers.
John D. Rockefeller Jr. played a pivotal role in the establishment of the early development of the United Nations. Her contributions were both financial and strategic, helping to secure a permanent home for the organization in New York City. John D. Rockefeller donated 17 acres of land in the East River of Manhattan to the United Nations in 1946.
Hold on now. Let's hear what you got to say there, Mark.
Thank you. So yeah, we've got private and public ventures. That doesn't mean
but what we're saying, Mark, is
hold on
it's
now,
these rich people that are basically creating these one world government organizations.
The United Nations was created. In fact, Britain was one of the original signatories of the United Nations. And
your point is?
Not sure if the US was, but I know Britain and France was.
You mean the same Britain that created like the world's first big empire and wanted to control all the people around the planet? That Great Britain?
Whatever.
Whatever, nothing, man. You're still ruled by a king and queen. Like, I mean...
only technically.
Unelected leaders governing over people, and this is the same kind of thing.
Have you ever heard of Cornwall?
Cornwall.
Yeah, I've heard of
Cornwall, as in
Cornwall,
the English Civil War.
Well, Cornwall would have been a good example if, like, after he died, everybody went back to a king and queen structure because they were pussies and didn't know what real freedom was. I mean, it was like
we were still governed by an elected representative.
Whatever, dude. Cornwall. Okay, not only did he freaking give you freedom, but after he gave you freedom, the people of England came back to him and offered him the role of king, and he became angry and got really harsh. And then, because he did that, England turned around and turned him into a villain and a tyrant. Well, you
But
know,
he was a tyrant. He after the English Civil War, there was 5 years of in effect ruling the country.
that was because the same people he freed freaking wanted to go back to the same system that him and other men died to freaking get rid of and create a true freaking free country. Okay. As a matter of fact,
So
they turn around and they replace the government that he had with a king and queen.
uh, they didn't replace the government. They
Just
gave or they we the monarch did become King Charles II.
Can you just inform the public, including me, what you're talking about? Like, what is Cornwall and what's the significance to a conspiracy?
Cornwall was the one who fought the English Revolution. I think it was the first one. I believe
Civil War. No.
the first or second Civil War.
And
And
who?
he actually won. Okay, and when he won, he wanted to freaking give power to the people of England and not have a king and queen, a monarchy. What happened though is that a lot of these royal families and nobles approached him and said to him that they wanted to go back to a monarchy and that they wanted to make him king of England. Okay. And he became outraged. He became outraged by this because of the amount of people who had died in the freaking Civil War just previously. You know, to freaking give England the freedoms that he wanted them to have. So he became real strict, real tyrannical. I guess you could say. You know what I mean? But when you look at the evidence, though, I would be pissed off too. I mean, what would happen if freaking they did the same thing to George Washington after freaking he fought in the Revolutionary War? What would happen if these colonials came back to him and said, "We don't like this. We want to change it back to what it was"?
You would have a British monarch.
Same old tactic, man. They do it still to this day, where that if you're a threat to them, they'll often try and entice you into their group first, try and buy you off, and then turn you into an asset. It's been done since time immemorial. And if they can't do that, then they'll kill you.
Allegedly.
Okay, so since you brought it up that we need to stay on topic, I'm gonna start it off here now. When it comes to these universities, okay, I want to mention that the most notable institutions that were involved was Harvard University and McGill University when it came to MK Ultra, and they're the ones that did most of the experiments. Now at McGill, the guy who was involved in that was Ewan Cameron. Okay. Now, have you guys ever heard of psychic driving techniques?
I have. I'm just not. It's not on the tip of my tongue right now. What it is? Is it sort of suggestion?
Yeah, kind of. Now, what happened with psychic driving techniques? What they would do is they take the patients and they would drug them, then they'd strip them of their clothing sometimes, and then like they would make it to where they didn't have any sense of time or identity. They'd have like amnesia. They would put them in a state where they had amnesia and they didn't know what time it was, what the year was, anything. You know what I mean? They didn't even know what time it was on the clock. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
Then they'd bombard them with like recorded messages. If you watch the old TV shows, they would show like freaking people being put in front of a screen and all these images being put in their face. What was that one? Uh, what was that one where it came out of
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange is a good example. That's what they're talking about, where they peeled his eyes open and put those eye drops into his eyes and made him watch films to and what that was supposed to do is it was aimed at implanting new thought patterns within their brain, basically behavior modification. You know what I mean? So that's what was basically taking place. And that was really really important when it came to CIA strategies during the Cold War, because they thought that was how they could create assets who could go behind enemy lines and do what they wanted to and obey every command that was given to them. You know what I mean? This isn't conspiracy either. This is known information. You can find it on the internet, whatever. Go look for the freaking files and stuff. They're open to the public. What do you guys think about that? Being real quiet. I think, did we lose Mr. Robot?
Don't know.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Yeah, pretty brutal techniques they used back then. Yeah, a lot of people got kind of damaged and went psycho after that.
Now, after mentioning that, I also want to get into psychological manipulation when it comes not only to like the personal levels, like the strategies that the CIA used on patients and stuff in colleges or experiments, but I also want to talk about propaganda when it comes to psychological operations that were used on the public. Everybody, you know what I mean, in public opinion and in here in the United States and over there, and like what you guys freaking were told and things like that. This is where I decided I wanted to talk about Operation Mockingbird.
The so-called nudge units.
Before you talk about that, we should actually mention that this happened way before then, with like indoctrinating kids with false history in schools. Like, I'm sure we all have examples of that, where we get taught like a Western-centric version of history, and you grow up with that, and you see the whole world through that lens. And that is a type of psychological, operation where
False history or limited history?
yeah,
Cherry pick history rather than false history.
Well, yeah, you could say it is kind of false in a sense. Like if you say, Christopher Columbus founded Southern Africa, or, like that's not exactly true. Like, he came there, but there was people there already, It's not like he discovered it. But yeah, we got taught that kind of stuff in school, and I took it as gospel. Until only like way later on in my life, I realized, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense.
Now, when it comes to Columbus, I do want to point something out. Here in a short while, after I shut this down, I'm going to be coming out with a series called The Cut, which I've been doing 15-minute videos of on Rumble and YouTube for uploads. But I'm going to do live streams on that. And my first one is going to be on the topic of erotica. We've had this conversation in Elements chat room at one point, but Mark Edworthy doesn't remember it. But this is actually the truth about
Possibly.
this is actually the truth about how the name America came to be, especially when it comes to like maps and who actually created the first freaking map of America and stuff of that nature.
Okay, yeah, I have commented on that.
So
In very limited, yeah.
so if you guys are interested, we can get into that too, because that's a very, very good conversation right there.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
And the one thing too that when it comes to this, you got to understand too that these people go. I mean, like the education system, first of all, is they're pretty ignorant about how they do things. Like the books that the textbooks that they put out goes according to the bestsellers list. Like educational systems have a bestsellers list compared just like regular book companies do.
Yeah, you do that by the US system
No,
mainly.
you guys do it too.
Yeah,
You guys-
different countries will have a slightly different take on this. as to
They
say.
all go according to a bestsellers list. The ones that sell the best and they go according to that, not about the information that's being put out. So you have different levels like that too, which is very important to take into consideration. Like, and then here in the United States, it's not mandatory for college students to take history. Okay, and the history that's being taught to children is pretty horrible. It really is. Like they're not being told the actual history of how things were. Now, if you get into college, you can hear about it, but now when you're a college student, it's not really a mandatory curriculum. It's something you can pick or choose. So the majority of people who get into college or university, they don't hear what the actual history lessons are being taught. Because they don't like history by the time they make it to college.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I hated history in school just because I felt like it was propaganda, basically. Kind of reminded me of shit.
I am aware of a few people that have gone to universities and done PhDs.
And if anyone out there hates history like I did, I'm going to tell you now, you need to look into it yourself because history is much more amazing than you could ever imagine. And like the stuff that has happened on this planet is better than all the best movies you've ever seen put together times 10. Like it is epic, some of the stuff that's happened in history.
Maybe
Sorry to
some of
interrupt
it.
you, Mark.
Oh, it was great. It was great. You did good. Now go ahead, Mark Edworthy.
No, I was just thinking. I know of a couple of people who studied various elements of history, both at university, bachelor's and PhD, possibly PhD sort of standard.
We'll talk to them. They'll tell you the same thing I just told you. They're one of many who actually did it, and it's really a shame, to be honest with you. And I guarantee you, they won't disagree with me. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you right now.
Sorry if I derailed you, Roger. You were saying something about Operation Mockingbird?
Well, it's fine, but yeah, I can get into the Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird basically was a covert Central Intelligence Agency program, okay? And in its early, it was actually brought around in the early years of the Cold War, and it was aimed to like influence people here in the United States and people all around the world. You know what I mean? It was its purpose was to align people's perception of the United States according to the U.S. Foreign policy and the way freaking that we're perceived. You know what I mean? Now, what they did is they started going and they started. Or actually, first the person who was first in charge of it was a guy by the name of Frank Wisner. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Okay, Frank Wisner was the one who was appointed head of the office, and it was called the CIA Office of Policy Coordination, and that was in 1948. This kind of goes with what Mark was talking about, how it goes all the way back into the 40s and stuff. Wasn't it you who said that, Mark?
Yeah, I'd say that. I think 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 40s, 30s.
Now he was in charge of overseeing covert operations, and he actually started realizing like how the media could be a potential weapon when it comes to psychological warfare and ideological too. Because like today, you'll hear a lot of people who get on these quote unquote alternative media platforms, and they love Jesus so much. They love, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
they keep spreading this hate, and that's what that is. That's ideological warfare. These people have been converted into Jesus loving warmongers.
That's right, man. It's so prevalent in the US, especially. So many people, they just tout Jesus all the time, but then they're pro-war at the same time, and just it's insane. It's totally insane.
Well, see, this was all propagated by Operation Mockingbird, and it's just saturated not only in our government but also in other governments. I was, and this isn't just here with concerns to like people fighting against socialism. The socialists did it themselves. I was doing last year. Me and Mark were doing frickin' Roger's Real Time Talk Show, and I found a part where they were talking in England about kids in church. Okay, in England, were being taught frickin' socialism in Sunday school. Okay, and now to me that was pretty profound. No, nobody else thought that was important, but for me, I thought that was pretty significant. Like they were being taught socialist ideology in church, which combines the two of them. You know what I mean? That's pretty freaking trippy. That when you
It's pretty rife in universities too now. I attended a few US lectures, and the guy just keeps harping on about totally irrelevant stuff to do with socialism.
Are we
In an
talking about
IT class.
socialism per se, or are we talking about cultural Marxism?
it would be socialism. It wouldn't be Marxism was you remember how we went over that like there was,
Yeah. I'm thinking about universities and colleges these days. For the last 15, 20 years, there's been issues of cultural Marxism, the entire DEI and woke arguments.
yeah. And woke is something that I do think is a culmination of ignorance because, well, first of all, there's a difference between socialism and radicalism, okay? And like when everybody hears liberalism, they don't understand that radicalism is a completely different area than what liberalism is. You have liberals and then you have radicals.
Radicals are good though, right?
No, they're bad.
What?
Yeah.
Again, you're talking about socialism as being a one concept or one thing.
No. Don't you're right about that. That might be the way it's being perceived, but let me clarify that there are different types of
And
social.
that's why I mentioned Marxism and cultural Marxism.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. You are right, and they don't get along all the time. Okay, these groups are not friends. They're socialists, all of them, but they do not get along. A lot of the wars that have culminated for the since the 20th century and maybe even a little bit before that, I believe has culminated because of socialism. All of these socialist groups do not like one another and they are constantly fighting with each other.
Probably by design, I'd say.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
No, it goes back to my point earlier about the red and white during the Bolshevik Revolution, and things like Trotsky being moved by Stalin. What was it, the 1933 purge of Russian politicians?
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of things
Yeah.
going on there. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to get into Russia, we'd have to freaking discuss the pogroms too, or the pogroms, where they were systematically murdering people because of their ethnic beliefs and stuff of that nature. And then that went on all the way up until the 90s. Like, whenever you remember Croatia, right,
Yeah,
and Lithuania.
yeah.
I mean, that stuff is directly a directory,
Georgia.
right? Ethnic cleaning and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
That goes all the way back to what you're talking about right there. So
I don't know. There was again. This is just after the Soviets fell, the USSR fell, and obviously there was a vacuum, a power vacuum
and they all
in this
went right
country.
back. They all went right back to their old ways. You know, started doing mass genocides and things of that nature. It's
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if genocide is the correct term in this specific context.
you know. So when it comes to the ideology and the psychological warfare, I do have some notable figures that were alleged to have connections to the program. Now, there was Philip Graham. He was the publisher of the Washington Post. According to various reporters and later investigators, Graham played a role in facilitating contacts between the CIA and the press. Now, in addition to traditional news media, the CIA also engaged in cultural propaganda. Right now, this was under like a broader umbrella of psychological operations. The agency funded like literary journals, cultural exhibitions, film productions, and academic conferences, things of that nature. This is where we get into what I was talking about when it came to like shows like MacGyver and Knight Rider, and how they were trying to make think tanks out to be like this good thing. You know what I mean? This noble thing.
Top Gun, all the war movies,
You know.
Captain America, all that kind of stuff.
And that the government was funding this stuff, and to this day you'll hear people talk about, oh, NASA didn't push that, NASA didn't push that. That's just that was sci-fi, that was put on the TV, that everybody understood it. If you didn't understand that, that meant you were crazy. But
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is like NASA freaking funded these films so that they could be made. Okay, and nobody seems to catch that part. They don't understand. Like, NASA has been
NASA didn't have the money.
did.
Part of it was coming from the States, and the majority of it was coming from private advertising, mainly, advertising.
Like,
I noticed a common theme where they would name movies after real events and operations and stuff like that. And after the movie comes out, you can't find it on the internet anymore because it just gets polluted with all the the media, movie stuff.
After we're talking about films dating back to the 70s. What internet? What web?
Well, let's
I'm talking about the 90s, 2000.
it's still happening is the point, though. You know what I mean? Like, what was the name of that movie where it had to do with the black hole, and the guy was trapped in it after they freaking, it was not interstellar, but
Yeah.
What was
Isn't it Interstellar?
is that what the name of it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean, you take a look at that show, okay, and you cannot, and I know for a fact that it was actually funded partly by NASA, okay, and they put money into it, and they even allowed these people to go in and do research on like how space shuttles and the space.
So it's funded by the taxpayer, in effect, the US taxpayer.
Right.
That's what you're saying, rather than NASA, because NASA is just a
Well,
governmental agency.
Well, they get funding, okay, and there's a certain amount of money that goes to them to where they can manage
Yeah,
it
they
on
get a
their own,
budget, yeah.
you know. So it goes from the government directly to them, so they can spend it any way they want it. Now,
Within the remit.
right now, the thing is they funded this movie, and if you pay attention to what they portrayed as being real, they said that freaking the crops were no longer freaking growable. Okay, we had created this environment where nothing could grow anymore, and the farms were slowly depleting. And that climate or environmental climate deniers had shunned freaking government so bad that they refused to allow it to be discussed in schools. And that NASA had to go into hiding because these people did not want them to be around anymore. They were systematically erased. So they had to go into a bunker and they had to do their research in secrecy. And this is a movie that was funded by NASA.
Well, and look what's happening now, you know. That's all part of the 2030 agenda, climate goals. Yeah. I've got a picture of it here somewhere.
So that's the one thing that I did. I wanted to drop the shoe on them bastards at NASA because it's fun as hell to just talk shit about NASA. Those people are pretty dirty. Now this is the last part that I wanted to cover. I did a lot more, just so you guys know. All right, but like I said, they're in the previous episodes. I did want to cover some stuff that involved DARPA, okay? Because we've been bouncing in and out of DARPA, talking about them. We talked about MK Ultra, which had an influence in DARPA as well. But I wanted to bring up DARPA, and there was one program that I wanted to mention, and that was the Total Information Awareness, the TIA. System that they wanted to put in place, and that was a pretty controversial, and it was actually a pretty ambitious surveillance program, to be honest. And that was initiated here in the United States under DARPA. Okay, and this is the kind of stuff that Mark always disagrees with me with when it comes to the internet and all the cool stuff that he's into, because that's his whole livelihood. He learned about the internet. That's his business. You know what I mean?
He's got rose-colored glasses on, as we say,
Hardly.
when it comes to the internet.
Hardly.
But this program is a really getting away from all the conversations we've had about DARPA /ARPA and the internet and all that stuff. I wanted to just break it down and go straight to this, the total information awareness program that they had going. Now,
Still have it going. Palantir and that is like taking it on now, isn't it?
mm-hmm. Now the government in the early 2000s, they wanted to collect vast amounts of data on individuals, and they wanted to do that according to them to detect like potential threats to national security. All right. Now, what they wanted to, or what they created it from was a program, or what they created this program through was a freaking institution called the Information Awareness Office. If you guys want to check it out, okay. And it was a part of the Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, which is DARPA. Now, DARPA also was the ones, I don't care what anybody says, they're the ones who came out with the internet. Mark argues with me about this all the time, but they are the ones.
I totally disagree. Are we talking about the internet or are we talking about the web?
We're talking about the internet.
Okay, I still disagree with you on both.
Oh, he thinks that England came up with the internet first.
England aided in the production and creation of the web.
Okay, so they came up with the internet. DARPA did. Okay.
Technically,
after 9/11, they renamed the Total Information Awareness Program into the Terrorism Information Awareness Program.
Mm-hmm.
Much more palatable.
Right. Now, we've gone over this in the internet is a scam part of the Untethered, and this is where I pointed out to Mark Edworthy. What does URL stand for? Yes, your URL.
Universal Resource Locator.
Right. And you need to understand that we are a resource.
Uniformed. Is it uniformed or universal? Uniformed, I think, actually.
I believe you were right the first time.
Universal, uniformed. No, it's uniform. Yeah, uniform resource locator.
No. Yeah, you're right. Uniform. Now, the thing that's important to understand is we are a resource. Okay, that's basically what you have to think of when it comes to the internet. We are a resource, and this is a locator. You see what I mean? So when you have to freaking get on the internet and you look up there at your URL, that's what that is for. That's its main purpose, is to locate you.
Again, we're mainly talking about web rather than the internet, because as we've already discussed, the internet's it's a wider sort of concept than the World Wide Web.
I'm discussing it all.
Well,
URLs really represent really a terminology that's used for web addresses.
Let's be more specifically, Roger. A URL, aka domain name, is there to locate a web server. All right, it's an easy to type in address to locate a web server on the internet, which might be your
domain name. It may not be a domain name. It could be a subdirectory of a domain. So it could be slash.
But when it comes to actual tracking, we're talking about fingerprinting your browser, your history, fingerprinting your IP address, your MAC address, your cookies, all that stuff. They also keep that on file, and that is the actual way where they can actually pinpoint who you are, what you're thinking, what you're doing, and track that.
Who are they?
The evil empire, dude. You know.
Royalty.
because you've got to consider things like the various data protection laws within in various countries,
You
such
know,
as
Tell you,
GDPR,
no one cares about
various
the
countries
laws,
goes
all
to be
right? Only
considered
you
as
do.
personal identifiable information.
Mark, you know who they are.
Well,
Stop.
anyway, they changed the laws so that they can do these dragnets,
They
mass
changed the laws
surveillance
so they
programs.
can't. In
You
Now,
know, MI6 would be doing it. NSA definitely does it. I know, like all the Five Eyes do it. China probably does it. So there's a lot of agencies that like keep all
and
this metadata around the world.
I
Even
just
even
wanted to.
internet
I
service
just
providers
want to
do.
dispel. I just want to dispel one point that a lot of people make a mistake about. People talk about their IP addresses as being centrament, as being an IP address that is attached to a computer that is always there. Incorrect. For most domestic internet service provider contracts, people will receive what is in effect a dynamically a, a allocated address, which will change every time you switch on your router or switch on your phone, switch on your gateway device, or after a certain amount of time, which is really dependent on this individuality
However,
qualities.
However, your internet service provider still gets access to your MAC address, which is a unique identifier, and
Indeed.
they would be keeping track on which IP addresses you've had over time. So if the government comes
They
in and
will
says,
only
I want to
they will
know
only
who
have
was viewing this
generally
website,
speaking, they will only have access to the gateway devices
it's still
MAC
that's all they
address.
need.
So
That is all.
yeah.
yeah,
That is all they need.
so not so maybe not
Well,
still the
actually,
computer.
in my country anyway, I don't know about yours, they give out, like Telstra gives out these smart routers now,
Mhm.
where the internet service provider has backdoor access into your internal LAN, and they can actually see all the MAC addresses on your entire network at any given time.
There would be a violation of the Computer Misuse
Yeah.
Act of
Yeah, it would be,
I,
Mark.
I,
It would be, but that's what
the
they do.
UK.
I can help you out on this. Okay, I found out too that when you get the service put in, you get rid of the freaking router that they have as their company's router, and you buy your own router and install that.
Yeah, and even better, install open
Yeah,
source firmware
but
on
they're
it,
still going
like
to access the mark.
OpenWRT, and chuck your VPN on the actual router.
Now, what was you saying, Mark?
Yeah, but the MAC address is still exposed.
Right, exactly.
The MAC address is the specific address that is stagnant, that is associated to the whatever network interface you use on the gateway device. Actually, a MAC address is any is related to any network interface
You can
card or
spoof
network
that though if
interface.
you really wanted to.
That is illegal in most countries, which is funny enough. I've got a
What do you think that is, Mark?
yeah, which is funny enough. I've got a device, a Banana Pi RC2 here that it doesn't that randomizes MAC addresses, which is actually illegal under UK law.
Wow. Why do you think
It's, it doesn't have a static MAC address on its Wi-Fi or Ethernet ports. Or actually, the
good?
Wi-Fi
It's
don't
good to
because
break
it's
the
very
law,
hard.
isn't
But
it?
on the Ethernet ports, which is actually technically illegal
Well,
under
good for
UK
you, Mark.
legislation.
Good on you for breaking the law. I support that. Privacy should be a
Oh,
human
that in
right.
time of purchasing the device. Well,
So what were we
depends on
talking about again?
what
We were
you
talking
say.
about total information awareness, and then what? Has Roger left the room? He thought, "Oh, these guys are arguing. There'll be a little while. I'm just going to step away for a
Yeah,
second."
cigarettes.
He's left us hanging.
But yeah,
Um,
but back to my original point. That for most domestic users, when they access the internet through their router or phone or whatever gateway device, their IP, their public IP address is not stagnant. It will alter over a period of
yeah, a lot of operating
usually
systems
a couple of
cycle your
days.
MAC address now. It's more like in the 2000s, early 2000s and 90s, where MAC address was used for tracking. Yeah, and they got way more sophisticated
Yeah,
stuff.
but a lot of people believe, and I've seen this so many times, especially online, even people like Bill Ottman doesn't even understand this, that as far as domestic users are concerned, there isn't a stagnant IP address.
Now I understand too that when Mark is using the word stagnant, he says that has to do with being static. Today,
Static, yes, static, yeah.
today in the
Right.
modern, a lot of
Better word, yeah.
language,
Stagnant.
computer, they like to use the word static, but before it was referred to as stagnant. It was actually. You got to admit that it has changed. Like now,
Nobody threw the word above.
I want to also point out that the main goal of TIA was to build a database that could track individuals' activities and uncover like patterns that indicated terrorist activities, supposedly. Okay. Now, this included the use of data mining techniques, which would scan large amounts of data for supposed irregularities. And they also used the app predictive analytics, and they were doing that because they thought they could.
More people like Mr. Robot would call artificial intelligence these days.
And
In
they would
most inappropriately call.
they would predict. They supposedly used that so that they could predict or forecast like potential threats. You know what I mean? This is this is when information from Snowden started coming out too. Of course, you know what I'm saying. This is when a man has to be forced into exile because his government is doing something that's illegal and against its own people. All right. But that's just a conspiracy, guys. Don't pay no attention to the guy behind the freaking curtain. You know what I mean? So
Well, a lot of interesting things came out in those files. Talking about the Keyscore X program that they
yeah,
had,
yeah,
where they could search anything that's ever been done on the internet, basically. The Prism data collection program, Boundless Informant, where they basically have an app that shows which countries they collect data in and how much they collect on each country, like this. NSA's secret tracking tool to track global surveillance data. And you can see like the Middle East, India, China, US, for some reason Alaska and Brazil are like big ones where they collect data.
Oh, Alaska is the US, isn't it?
well, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It's probably the freest part of the world, to be honest with you. I think they're freer than what the actual USA is. I mean, from everybody I've heard of, when it comes to Alaska, it's a world of its own. You know what I mean? Like, so. But then again, I wouldn't want to live there. It's kind of like the Yukon.
Bit cold. Yeah, bit cold one day.
So I wouldn't want to live there. So we have or I have dove deeper into this subject too. We ended up getting into previous conversations on Untethered about the generations of warfare. I thought that stream was so freaking amazing that I used my talking points as notes for one of the episodes I did on this series. And then I also kind of dove deeper and I got into Jade Helm and stuff like that. But I really don't want to like go into that whole subject because it's a whole topic on its own. You know what I mean? I wanted to come to this point and kind of review all of this. Now later on, if you guys want to get into those topics again, we can do it. But like I said, this is the last episode for conspiracy. After this, I'm coming out with two more because my Cosmic Weave video series is coming to an end, as well as conspiracy. So I'm gonna have uh, the cut coming
Just
out.
remind me, sorry, Roger, just remind me, Cosmic Weave, what's the subject matter? What was the theme?
Oh, the Cosmic Weave is about freaking. Well, a lot of people who are into remote viewing, they really
Oh,
aren't. They really aren't aware of like where their ideas and their beliefs come from. It has to do with parapsychology, and parapsychology is really deeply woven into the theories of the cosmic egg theory and the cosmic weave. You know, so you've got a lot of things going on there, and like I said on my last episode of the Cosmic Weave yesterday, when you like watch Ancient Aliens and you see the parts where they show the brain and they talk all the intellectual scientific stuff, there's a good chance they're talking about the Cosmic Weave or the Cosmic Egg, one or the other. You know what I mean? There's a slight
I've
difference in.
never heard anybody call. I've never heard anybody describe the Ancient Alien series as what was it, History Channel or Nature Channel, History Channel, as being intellectual.
It
It's
has
little
You're
known
probably the
history.
first person I've ever heard use that those two that word.
they've got little bits and pieces that they catch it. Mark or Mr. Robot, I know you wanted to say something.
Oh, I think they did a pretty good job on that show. Actually, they've covered a lot of different. Like they did some really good work on that show. I know it's hard to believe, but a lot of it's actually quite good knowledge. Yeah, they do push the alien thing a little bit hard sometimes where it's not warranted, but most of the time they're pretty spot on.
We've got some interesting stuff on there. It just with the whole thing that I had with the Cosmic Weave is, you know, I see it in little bits and pieces on these documentaries, but nobody really wants to dive deep into the actual concept of what the Cosmic Weave is. So I tried to give it a chance, or tried to give it a try.
Do you mean Cosmic Web?
The
Like, is
it's
it the
called
same thing?
it's called the Cosmic Weave. It's kind of like I said, the offshoot of the cosmic egg theory. And I don't know if you know much about the cosmic egg.
Is the cosmic egg like a supernova or like the beginning of a galaxy or something like that?
Well, you know the
Is this a
story.
So I was going to say, if there was a cosmic egg, is there cosmic chicken?
Well, you're gonna have to find out.
No, no.
But that's
And
basically
which
what
one
it is.
came first?
Now,
Gravity would be the chicken.
I ended that series, and I'm coming out with a cut. And then because I'm bringing this one to an end, this brings me or comes into me having an opportunity to do my weird science series, which I've been wanting to do for a long time. So with that one, it's going to get pretty cool because I got a lot of cool shit that I'm going to be coming up with, and it's going to go deep. We're talking about black holes, man. We're talking about freaking the Dyson spheres, things of that nature. So,
Make sure you bring videos.
it's going to be good. And I'll be doing that next after this one is done. And Mark Edworthy and Mr. Robot loves me so much that they want more. So what I'm doing as well is I'm going to, because we are up to our last episode of Untethered, and I'm going to do live with Roger Hansen as well. So we'll have that where we can discuss a lot of different topics like this and a lot of the other stuff we've been discussing. If you guys want to check that out, you're more than welcome to do that. That's going to be starting after Untethered ends. Now,
It's going to be good. Good.
which is probably next Friday.
right. So the following Friday, if you guys want to do that, we can go into live with Roger Hansen. And also, I'm also
If
scheduled.
you guys think we were unhinged on Untethered, you should see us on live with Roger. And we just go totally bananas.
That's right. And Mr. Edward,
Loopy.
Mr. Edworthy, he will get up and he will do a dance.
He actually gets his gear off sometimes. Would you believe it or not?
You what? What?
He
What?
gets so
What?
sauced. He gets so sauced. He gets his gear off sometimes. Mark Edworthy.
Now, in order to see live with Roger Hansen, in order to see live with Roger Hansen, it's going to be on my live with Roger Hansen streams, my channel on Rumble, and it's also going to be on my main Roger Hansen account on YouTube. That's going to be edited out before it's put on YouTube because we have to be careful for Mr. Robot.
Maybe.
He's a renegade.
Maybe because we've had a few success stories where you've not needed to edit Untethered.
That's true.
So,
But Mr.
I don't
Robot,
bloody know what you're talking about.
Mr. Robot's a bit of a renegade who walks his own path.
Well, I just don't think we should be on YouTube altogether. No offense, YouTubers.
But
I want to feed the beast.
Market share.
But as well as that, we are going to also be on D Live. We're also going to be on Twitch. But the only way to see our streams on Twitch is to actually be watching it live. After the stream is over, there is no video. So, just so everybody knows. And we also, huh? Well,
But I was thinking Facebook Odyssey.
no, we don't do those anymore. Unproductive. Facebook is the worst. It's worse than YouTube, believe it or not. I ended up quitting Facebook because they were like sending me senseless copyright infringements on things that I knew wasn't copywritten. You know what I mean? It's like, are you serious, dude?
And talk about mass surveillance. They're the OG mass surveillance people.
So we are on Kick as well, but Kick, and X, which I am streaming on, is all under Roger Hansen, Roger_Hansen at DLive in Kick, and then Roger Hansen at ROGLOL1973 on X. Now, if you want to catch us on Twitch, that's Infamous 1969. On Rumble on Rumble, you can find my actual channel called Live with Roger Hansen. And you can find Live with Roger Hansen at my main account on YouTube, which is Roger Hansen. Just Roger Hansen. So now these episodes are done. And I wanted to say, freaking, I am so glad that they're done. Even though I did enjoy them, it was very, very. There are so many amazing things that you could have brought up in this topic. You know what I mean? And I was just overwhelmed by it because there are so many directions I wanted to go with it, and I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I would have had to have freaking done an entire year of
Oh
streaming
yeah,
just conspiracy. So I had
yeah. You just hyper focus on any given point, and it's like a endless rabbit hole in every direction.
but and it's just like doing this episode. I really had to cut it down on the topics. I got into a lot of the stuff like Mr. Robot's big on the Rothschild family. I did a few episodes about the Rothschilds and the Warburgs. And later on, I do want to get into the banking part of the conspiracy as well, because that's really, really important. There's a lot of old time conspiracy theorists that aren't around anymore who had a lot of good stuff or content that I want to go over. So, with that,
Mhm.
I will be coming back with more of that later on. So
You should
before I
also recommend a few books for people every episode. You know, there's so many good books out there. Um,
well,
I have
I the best that I do is I encourage people to do the research on their own. Don't listen to me. Listen to what they find out. Okay, I have a lot of people freaking who I've been working with who do not like to do the research. You know what I mean? I just ended
yeah.
up I just ended up getting into an argument with Bob Dub over freaking AI or LLMs, whatever you want to talk about it. And I got into an argument. I didn't even really. It was her like going into a rage because she didn't agree with what I was saying. You know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is it's like the topic that I was bringing up could pertain to her because I was talking about how LLMs could potentially be harmful to people with mental illnesses. You know what I mean? And people who are in denial don't like hearing that kind of stuff because they're not open minded enough to listen to another person's point of view. Now, telling somebody with a mental illness that kind of stuff, it tends to make them angry, you know? And that's an example of it. So, what I usually tell people is do your own research, come up with your own information. If you don't believe what I'm saying, give yourself a little bit of time to do the research for yourself and see what you find out. You know what I mean? Don't be closed minded. Be open minded about this stuff, and you do the reading and you find the books and you know what I mean. Stop asking people for references, Mister Robot.
A lot of people like don't know how to do research online, and I'm actually going to start my own series on deep dive, where I show my methodologies on how I investigate topics. Because
Cool.
there's a lot of like cool little tricks nowadays online on how to find stuff, and it's not through search engines. Search engines have been totally manipulated to just feed
Yeah, but
people a mainstream
the
narrative.
the other thing is that a lot of people do not know how to use search engines in a efficient manner.
It's
I
true.
mean,
Yeah,
I,
but
I,
also SEO has just polluted the stream on. So unless you like know what you're looking for, it's really hard to find relevant stuff.
I'll
So
tell you
yeah.
what. When it comes to search engines, okay, I freaking thought I was God when I actually found out how to find free porn. It took me years to figure out how to find free porn on the internet. And all I had to do was sit down and learn about search engines, you know?
Um, yeah, yeah.
That's it.
I remember in the old days finding all those hacker sites that would like hack these porn sites and they'd give you like the passwords and shit to them.
Yeah.
Funny.
But I
I
did.
probably back.
I found I was God of the world when I found out how to watch free porn, dude. Like, and now, freaking, that's been many years ago. You know what I mean? It's like freaking. It's just it opens your mind up if you can just figure out how to use search engines properly. So,
Yeah, yeah, for
that's,
sure.
so before we go, Miss Robot, you want to give out your information so that people know how to get in touch with you?
Well, this is my music channel, Hacker Radio. I recommend coming here and checking it out. If you follow me there, we do live parties sometimes where I DJ for a few hours at a time. Like I said, deep dive research is another one I want to get going soon. There's also another one called Unmasking Corruption, which where I post a lot of my conspiracy stuff. Yeah, and we hang out on Element,
Which
which you can find
you,
at element.io.
yeah.
And
sorry.
He got excited. Just overlook it. Keep on going.
No. He was talking about these channels, and he didn't mention which platform he's on. So,
oh, that's Rumble. Everyone knows it's Rumble, don't they?
No, but it's good that you said that. Now, Elements, I don't know exactly what your address is there. I don't know my address is.
My address here is hashtag conspiracy-theory. And that'll take you to our channel that is called the Tinfoil Hat Club. And we actually also have a space in here called Conspiracy Hub. And it's got all of our... Wait, let me show you. It's got all of our conspiracy groups from like secret societies to covert operations, war history, the Grail quest for the Holy Grail. But yeah, most of the time we hang out in the Tinfoil Hat Club, and that's where we like share a lot of our information that's like current and whatnot. So feel free to join us anytime.
Okay. Nick and Mr. Edworthy, you want to tell everybody how they can find you?
Much more straightforward. Simply just go to minds.com and look for Medworthy.
Edworthy.
So minds.com/Medworthy.
Okay.
ME. Yeah.
And with me, I'm giving you all my information. If you guys like what you saw today, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Feel free to make comments because we definitely need them. We're getting sick of all these bots on here just telling us we need to freaking get help with our subscribers. We want to hear real people. So not only that, but it also does help when it comes to showing the platform that we are an active channel. So keep that in mind. That's important. With that, I am going to say I hope that you guys have a good day, good evening, good night, whatever time of the day it is for you. And we're going to end the show. I'll talk to you guys later. And thanks, YouTube, for showing up and being a part of this. I appreciate it.
Stay vigilant, folks. Keep your eyes peeled. Keep your head on a swivel.
Vigilant, dude.